Hello, and welcome to my channel. I'm your host at Creepy Reading, and today I want to present 5 of the world's most haunted dolls for your viewing consumption. Now, before we go into the video, I have to lay some warnings down for you. Some of these dolls that you're about to see today are able to curse you just by viewing an image or a video of it. If you do not wish to be cursed with misfortune this Christmas day, the only way for you to avoid that is to turn off the video now. For the rest of you who are brave enough to stay, view, and understand these wicked, haunted, unnatural paranormal objects, I suggest you sit down, sit back, relax, and turn down the lights and prepare to be scared as we explore the world's more sinister side. That being said, I'm your host TC, and I'm signing off.
Number 1, Juliet. Let me pose a question to you. Let's say there is a curse, one that's plagued your family for almost 200 years, and shows no sign of stopping. A curse that will always bring you the most dreadful of heartache, a curse that haunts you day in and day out. And the only way of putting an end to it is to end any and all chances of you seeing your child ever again. Would you do it? This is a question that all owners of Juliet dolls must ask themselves. The tale of Juliet begins almost 2 centuries ago when the current owner of the doll's great-grandmother was having a party in celebration of her recent pregnancy, a baby shower as we call them now. Many of her guests gave her gifts that would help her soon-to-be infant son. Well, all except one, that is. You see, this was going to be her second child, and her closest friend was jealous. She couldn't have a single kid, and yet this woman was already on her second one. This had to be dealt with. And what's a better method of dealing with it than giving your best friend and her soon-to-be infant son a cursed doll as a gift? The doll was an uncomfortable sight. The woman would look at it as to not upset her friend, thanking her for the gift, even if it was a poorly thought of gift. The baby was born healthy and happy, but on the 3rd day, he died. There was no sickness, there was nothing to hint at his sudden death. Many believe perhaps it was SID, but the mother believed differently. That night, the doll started to cry. But it wasn't just any sort of cry, it was a cry of her lost child, coming from the doll. She found that the soul of her child was now trapped inside a porcelain body of Juliet. She would treat the doll as though it was her own child, putting it on the table to eat with his sister, tucking it in to sleep at night, read bedtime stories, and all sorts of the truly terrifying motherly things that people do. As time went by, the doll, however, would still cry with the voice of a newborn infant, so she would treat it as a baby till the day she died. Then the ownership of the doll went over to her only daughter. The voice of her brother wouldn't happen too often. Soon enough, however, she was found pregnant. It would be her second child. And like the previous story, a little boy. That's when terror struck again. On the 3rd day, he was found dead in his crib of similar circumstances to again her little brother. Soon after, the voice of her deceased child was crying through the mouth of Juliet, along with the voice of her brother. The sounds of both infants would cry all night together in unison in eternal torment. She would go the same route as her mother, treating the doll as she treated her child, until her eventual death. This would become a disturbed tradition of the family, where no male child would live past the age of 3 days. Currently, 4 children reside within the porcelain doll. The poor, grieving family would refuse to destroy the doll in fear of destroying the souls of the children. So in fear, they keep them close, damning them for all their lives. Number 2. The Singapore Doll. The Singapore Doll is a creature that crawled right out of the bowels of Reddit, becoming a viral mystery as it was found abandoned on the side of the road, back leaning against a tree with a strand of cloth covering its eyes, with the words, "In the name of God," sloppily written in Arabic. Now, before you uncover the cloth, you should perhaps know this. The original owner had abandoned the body, which looks like a little girl, a little over 2 feet tall, with glass skin that is stained with a grayish hue. Nobody knows who the original owner is. However, it is probably best assumed that they don't want that thing back, especially because the spirit that possesses the thing is a malevolent one. Once the blindfold is removed, she presents an angry face, sending chills down the spines of all those idiotic enough to toy with the thing. It gets worse, however, because she follows whoever has unbound her. The only way to prevent her from coming after you, of course, is to blind her. But a normal cloth won't do. It has to be blessed and signed in a very specific way, so the normal rags you use to clean your dishes won't work. Sorry. She caused quite a commotion when she was discovered. Many residents of Singapore's streets surrounded her, getting pictures, and many fled in fear once somebody removed her blindfold. The street was normally busy, but surprisingly, nobody's seen or has claimed to see anyone leave the doll, and nobody arrived to claim the doll itself. The doll itself was described to be light in terms of weight, had a little dress, and a crestfallen looking expression, though stained with dark stains and dirt and slight burn marks. The original blindfold has now since vanished. The doll was passed around to many different residents, some claiming that the eyes moved when nobody was looking, and the head would change the position itself, without any human intervention. Even more peculiar, people have claimed that she speaks in a Malaysian language with a voice of an adult woman. Quite the disjointing experience, given the fact that the doll is obviously designed after a child. When one of her owners tried to dispose of it, they were met with the doll being back at their home the next day. The only way to get her to stop was to pass the ownership on to somebody else, and ever since her appearance, many residents have, unfortunately, committed suicide. So, the longer you have this doll, the more likely a unhappy accident is to happen. They claim that the doll itself gave them horrid nightmares, delusions, and some people have even vanished outright due to unknown reasons. One of the suicide victims was found hanging outside his apartment complex, and there was even a murder case related to this doll. While the authorities claim it's all a coincidence, others claim that the doll has cursed the entire street. Just when the terror was at its peak, the doll disappeared without a single trace. No leads, no evidence of where it could have gone. Nobody has come forward with an explanation. Some believe it was destroyed somehow. Others believe that it's in another small town, causing another rampage of terror. Of course, this is all rumor. Maybe your town's next. Whatever you do, if you find a blindfolded doll on the side of the road, for the love of God, let the thing rest in peace. Number 3. Peggy the Doll. Blue eyes, blonde hair, Peggy the Doll stands at 3 feet tall, but don't let her charming appearance and short stature deter you. She's quite the imposing figure. Many people have claimed that looking at her through pictures or even video has given them feelings of depression. as if they had just lost somebody close. Headaches, chest pain, stomach problems, and even a heart attack have all been linked to the viewing of this doll, leading the many to turn tail and run in fear, and denounce the doll as a demon. Peggy the doll, however, is not a demon. In life, she was a young Jewish woman who sadly lost her life during the Holocaust, which could only describe the feelings of depression that have plagued many viewers. Peggy's original owner obtained her through unknown means, but quickly after gaining ownership of her, she found herself getting ill often. She shrugged it off as a string of bad luck and failing immune system. But after consistent reassurances by her doctor that she was fine health-wise, she quickly fell onto the impression that perhaps it was this ill-fated doll's fault. She quickly started her trek to find a way to get rid of this doll. She didn't want to throw it out or destroy it, fearing that the spirit inside might be a vengeful one. She instead started searching for a new owner, and quickly found Janie Harris, a paranormal investigator who runs an organization dedicated to the collection and preservation of haunted dolls. Peggy quickly became her favorite, becoming a frequent test subject in the Harris photographs. And yes, even an entire book was written about this mysterious subject. 2015, Janie filmed herself trying to interview the doll, becoming a slight viral hit and getting picked up by many different news outlets. Within the video, Janie asks many questions while Peggy just sits still, staring deeply into the camera. The only responses are random noises that appear and then, just as quickly as they appeared, disappear in the form of slight knocking. However, the video ends rather abruptly, with text claiming that the doll had fallen over and the screen froze. Thus, the curse of Peggy the doll had corrupted the rest of the footage. Janie claims that 80 people have reported feeling illness, ranging from slight headaches to gratuitous vomiting. Tell me, what kind of effect will this video have on you? Number 4. eBay dolls. Haunted dolls have become a bit of an odd collector's item. Many people try to amass large rooms full of the tormental spirits. Think of it as a demented form of Pokemon. Many of these dolls can be bought or sold on eBay, oddly enough. So for this section, we'd simply like to discuss 3 interesting and creepy haunted dolls that have found its way onto the platform. Think of it as a list within a list. So let's start off with Eliza. Elijah. Currently for sale at the low price of $95 of free shipping, the seller goes by the username of Mystic Magics, and he claims that the doll is possessed with the spirit of a dead child by the name of Eliza. She's not like other possessed dolls though. She has telekinetic powers and an affinity for fire. The seller revealed her true name as Lacey, a witch who currently resides within a coven. She and her husband have decided and dedicated themselves to finding a home for spirits who are currently stuck within objects, such as young little Elijah. Elijah apparently died at the age of 7, though she has no recollection for who she was or what had killed her, but she says she knows it had something to do with fire. It is believed that perhaps she was burned alive. Elijah has the power to bend fire and water, and creating small whirlpools within them, small bodies of liquid mostly. Elijah is made out of easily pliable vinyl molding, and always had a slight smug grin on her face at all times. The seller warns against taunting the doll, saying that'll make her angry. She also warns against forcing Elijah to do something she simply does not want to do. Would you piss off a ghost that can control flames? Lacey claims that you can communicate with the doll through an Ouija board, EMF, telepathy, or EVP. The author also mentions and makes a point to saying that if you have any questions, she will answer them.
It seems you've made it this far into the video and you're still alive. I commend you. But for the rest of you who want to enjoy my content and explore horror on a completely new level, I suggest you go to my Discord link found on screen now, or go into links in the description below. You can talk to me and several of my other fans. I'd also recommend if you want to support the show by going on Patreon, or simply sharing by following me on Twitter and other social media. All will be found right here. For the rest of you, the more sinister dolls are found later on this list, so if you didn't click off before, I urge you that this will be the only time that you can have to save yourself from any potential misfortune or curse. Sit back, relax, turn down the lights, and prepare to adventure with the rest of us as we go into the latter half of our list of haunted dolls.
Isabella. Unlike most dolls previously mentioned, Isabella does not cause harm to her owner. In fact, they do quite the opposite. Supposedly, this doll heals. The seller goes by the username of Deb Needs Stuff and are selling little Isabel for the price of $129 with $8.70 for shipping and handling. Isabella died at the young age of 13 of respiratory illness at the time where it was simply incurable. Before her spirit found itself trapped within the body of a glass doll, the seller lists that at one point her eyes were bright blue, but they were slowly changing to that of lavender. Some attribute this to her spirit becoming more complacent within her form. Isabella heals those who own her, spiritually that is, through a form of therapy simply known as Reiki. She is a calm, gentle spirit who simply wants to help others. The seller does clarify that for her to work, you need to spend a long period of time with her, and that she has done her job well many times before. She also says that she'll answer any questions if you have them. The Clown. Not much is currently known about this doll, not its name, its history, or even full capabilities. The seller, who goes by the name of Karen A7100D, has it simply written down on the site as Haunted Doll. It isn't until you delve deep into the item's description that you hear the full experience. It all started when the seller was at a storage auction in which he bought a pet taxi, or a pet cage as they are more known as, and within there, he found something oddly peculiar. A small collection of hobo dolls, all in tattered clothing, and made out of hardened glass. There was one in particular that wore white and red clown makeup. When the owner bought the strange doll's home, they dropped it and broke the nose off the clown. They thought nothing of it. At least, not at first. That night, they had strange, vivid, vicious nightmares. In their dreams, disembodied gloves like those you'd see on a clown floated high above them. At first, it seemed like they were playing a round of rock, paper, scissors with the seller before slowly turning to vulgar and aggressive motions. That's when something begun to drop down on them. The clown doll, its nose broken off, and hovered on 4 fishing strings, moving like a puppet, steadily making its way towards them. In fear, he threw the phone at the creature. The strange strings tore off, but the creature didn't stop coming. It fell on all 4s and scurried underneath the bed. The seller tried to run away, even exiting the house. The doll, however, still followed. When he looked back, the doll was there. It pointed at his nose and then back at him aggressively. That's when he awoke. The doll was on a shelf, pointing at him. The nightmares continued until the seller eventually fixed the creature's nose. However, they say that the poltergeist activity became a regular occurrence. Things would fly off the shelves at random periods. They soon looked into a PK meter, finding that the spirit wouldn't just stick to the doll, instead hopping from object to object. They say that the entire house encountered weird sensations when the paranormal activity occurred. It was as if the house was underwater. They also claim that the house started to stink of cigarette smoke whenever the sensation was underway. The seller then searched the storage locker more, finding many objects related to witchcraft, including an old photograph of a Spanish conquistador, Herman Cortez, but with a peculiar blemish that looks like a face in the upper right corner. You can currently buy the doll for $100 with free shipping and handling. Number 1. Robert the Doll. Robert is perhaps the most well-recorded case of a haunting outside of Annabelle. He shakes his case, harasses those who don't show him respect, and even goes as far as to curse anyone who takes a photo of him without permission. It is even said that viewing these cursed photos and videos is able to transfer the same curse. Some of these curses are considered to be benign, as they are only able to cause minor accidents such as tripping, or they could be much, much worse. Taking pictures of the doll while you are pregnant is said to cause stillbirth or miscarriage. Photos or videos outside of that circumstances can lead to fatal accidents, such as car crashes, the deaths of loved ones, or an untimely encounter with a killer. Robert annually receives letters numbering in the hundreds or even thousands asking for forgiveness, which has prompted a no photography policy in the museum in which it's located at Key West, Florida. The story of Robert the Doll is a lot more sad and sinister. In the late 1800s, Thomas Otto and his family moved into a house known as the Artist's House. The Ottos were known to be stern with their servants, sometimes even mistreating them. It was the treatment of one Haitian servant that provides the twist in our story. This woman was hired to take care of their son Robert. One day, Miss Otto supposedly witnessed her practicing black magic in the backyard and fired her. Before she left, the woman gave Robert a lifelike doll which stood 3 feet tall and had buttons for eyes and actual human hair, believed to be the original Robert's. Dolls that resembled children were not unheard of during this time, but this one proved to be special. Robert named the doll after himself and often dressed this doll in his own clothing. Robert the Doll became a trustworthy companion. He took it upon them to go shopping in town with this thing. The doll had a seat at the dinner table where Robert would sneak it bites of food when its parents weren't looking. Robert would even be tucked into the bed with the boy at night. Soon, however, this innocent relationship took a strange turn. Robert chose to be referred by his middle name, Jean, after being scolded by his mother. He told her that Robert was the doll's name, not his. Robert was often heard in his toy room having conversations. Jean would say something in a childish manner, and responses could be heard in a much more deep, lower voice. Sometimes Jean would become very agitated, worrying that the servants and his mother would be listening in. She would on occasion randomly walk in on her son to find him cowering in the corner while Robert was perched in a chair or on the bed glaring at him. This was only the beginning. House objects would find themselves thrown across the room, Jean's toys would turn up mutilated, and giggling could be heard. Whenever the unusual acts took place, Jean always said Robert did it. The boy took punishment, but always insisted that the blame was on Robert. As the mischief grew, more and more servants took their leave and new ones were hired. The Otto's relatives felt that it was time to do something with the recommendation of a great aunt that Jean's parents remove Robert from his care and place him in a box in the attic. This is where he resided for many years. After the death of his father, Jean was willed his boyhood home. He decided to live in the Victorian mansion with his new wife. Gene had become an artist and felt that the house was spacious and would provide a place for him to paint. He went into the attic, dusted off his childhood toy, and he became attached to the doll despite his wife's displeasure of the creepy-looking thing. Gene would take the doll along with him everywhere they went. He even sat in his favorite little chair while Gene and his wife slept nearby. The turret room became Robert's domain after Miss Otto moved him back into the attic. Their marriage slowly became sour until Miss Otto supposedly went insane and died of unknown reasons. Gene followed soon behind. Robert supposedly attacked anyone. Sometimes looking at him in the attic, people who passed by claimed that they heard evil laughter in the turret room. For some time, Robert remained in the empty house by himself until a new family purchased the mansion and they restored it. The doll was once again moved to the attic. This pleased it as much as it did last time. The doll was often found throughout the house. On one certain night, Robert was at the foot of the owner's bed, giggling and holding a kitchen knife in hand. This was enough to send them fleeing from the home. Robert was later moved into the East Martello Museum in Key West, where he sits perched in a glass box, and to this day, Robert remains at the East Martello Museum in a sailor suit, clutching his stuffed lion, continuing on in his menacing ways. Before we move on to the end card, I would like you guys to do one thing and ask Robert for forgiveness, because I would hate to be responsible for any misfortune to befall any one of my viewers.